something to consider. If someone is using a textbook, to be very careful about or protecting the intellectual property of the textbook.
That's
itself.
right. Yeah, I think we're probably going to see a flurry of interest from publishers and so on as more and more people take their classes online.
So you actually found something that you mounted on YouTube that was blocked, that their algorithm actually picked up that this was a Dylan song and said, no way.
Absolutely. I mean,
Wow.
I was using it as a way of teaching poetry.
Well, I'm interested in two things there, that the algorithm does that for something that isn't a mainstream broadcast, and that whoever owns that song would be making the mistake of not allowing Dylan into the history of reception, because your kids, if you were teaching that this was for young kids, they don't know who Bob Dylan is.
No way you can broadcast Dylan singing Blowing in the Wind online. Even the record cover can only be shown in low resolution like this. So what are the do's and don'ts when we take our lessons online? I think, to be honest, if something's happening inside the classroom, nobody's any the wiser. You know, if people have gone to the copy machine and copied off half a book, 20 or 30 copies for their students, or if they've put up a video or something, it's contained within the classroom. And I think it has always been a concern for publishers and so on, but they haven't known how to get it under their radar. And then there's been the extra sort of, well, it is educational, but then they say, yes, but the educational establishment itself may be making a profit unless it's a state school or something, and the teacher is getting paid. So
that's right. And the university is a deep pocket. This would be a point for new teachers going online. Not every lecture needs to be recorded. And I could record the lecture and just say the next 20 minutes is going to be the video, and take the recording off. So that section of the video does not show up if the recording ended up online somewhere. You would just have to find it yourself and watch it yourself. Yeah. And just go with the lecture. But that would be the safest way to do it.
Right. It's not entirely frivolous to ask whether we're trying not to break the law or trying not to get caught breaking it. It's not as straightforward as that. The situation may vary from country to country and from case to case. The agreements reached between copyright holders and educational institutions in the UK won't apply in America, for example. And of course, national laws get thrown into confusion when we're online and crossing national boundaries.
But let's just say someone, I don't know, Patrick Stewart is reading for another show and you wanted to use that. Probably you could not do that. Probably there's a copyright to that. Okay,
let's just hold that there and unpack it a little bit. Here is Patrick Stewart addressing the Cambridge Union Society.
That I would be able to fill 30, 40 minutes happily and easily.
And I would happily and easily show those 40 minutes to my students on an online video or in the classroom. And here's Patrick Stewart again, taking the part of Scrooge in an online adaptation of Charles Dickens's A Christmas Carol. And I would be very wary of screening that video as part of an online student lecture. And here he is again, reading a sonnet by Shakespeare. And, again, you'd be ill-advised to use this in an online lecture. All three of those are freely available on YouTube, so what's the difference? Well, if I search for Patrick Stewart on YouTube, I get a whole set of results. Then if I filter the results, I can select those which are available on Creative Commons. And there it is. There's the video published by the Cambridge Union and there's the license. And if you're not sure what a Creative Commons attribution license is, well, Google is your friend. Basically, it just means give credit where credit is due. The second one is just a trailer for the movie, not even the movie itself. But trailers too are subject to copyright. I've put it in low fidelity with a kind of fuzzy surround. There's no money being made out of it by me. There's no loss of money as a result of it to the movie company. But even so, theoretically, I could be given a cease and desist order for this little snip. That's how strict the law can be. Or not. I actually took this footage from a video adaptation of the original that probably correctly claims fair use. And with this one, I'm avoiding any accusations of breaching copyright by putting a colour filter on it and talking over the audio. The YouTuber's just being cheeky here, trying to find a way to circumvent copyright, but basically she's crossed the line. The audio-visual is definitely within copyright, and as teachers we should be very aware of this kind of thing, and especially if we're putting such material online. The bottom line is you put the material up there and you're the one who's going to be held responsible for it. So you can't really afford just to take a look at a blanket headline like this and assume that it's all going to be okay. It's a lot more nuanced than that. I suggest you take something that goes into it in detail and read it fairly carefully. Having said that though, there's a huge amount of material that you can use. We've already talked about finding Creative Commons videos on YouTube. Let's take a look at ways of finding image, sound files and so on that you can use without having to worry about copyright issues. When you're searching on Google, if you're searching for images, you can click on Tools and Usage Rights will come up as one of the options. So you then go to Usage Rights.
Well, I do it all the time with PowerPoint, where if I need a hand to come in and point at something rather than just, one of those stupid arrows, the generic arrows, I will usually find something online that seems to be not copyrighted protected and looks a little bit better.
Yeah. Sites like Pixabay, Needpix, Flickr and Wikimedia Commons contain millions of image files that are either public domain or issued under a Creative Commons license. Providing you observe the conditions of use, you can use any of these without worrying about copyright restrictions. Audio files are a similar story. YouTube has an extensive sound library, and there are many other sites with usable resources. If you still can't find what you want, check out the Internet Archive, which has a huge collection of texts, videos, audio, and images. And if all else fails, well, just try asking. If you have any questions or comments, find me on my Facebook page and ask me, or just send me an email.